Let's get salty!
Hey everyone, Zeddy here again today with a brand new video, and today with my Twitch chat over at twitch.tv/Zeddy, where we stream every day, Tuesday through Saturday, hashtag shameless plug. We were discussing cards like Prince Renathal that have absolutely warped the meta in ways that we have never seen before, and I wanted to talk about what cards have done that throughout the history of Hearthstone, which have warped the Hearthstone meta more than any other card. And I'm not talking about a card like Zilliax, which is just like an incredibly good card, was in like 50% of decks. It was just a really solid card. It didn't really warp anything. You weren't trying to beat Zilliax, you just put it in your deck. It was a good card. We're talking about meta warping cards that dictated the meta. You had to beat them or you had to play them. And well, a lot of these are neutrals because, well, they tend to impact the meta the most. So let's go over my top 10 list of the most meta warping cards in Hearthstone history, and make sure to comment below on what the actual most meta warping cards are, because this is a really good one to debate. Before we get into the top 10, of course, I want to give a friendly reminder that if you enjoy the content and you want to help the channel, you feel like I've earned your subscription, please drop a subscription below, like the video, as we are on our road to 60,000 subscribers. And well, starting off at number 10, I might as well go with the card that's kind of dictating the meta right now. I'm putting it very low on the list because, well, it's very early on. This card, who knows how long it'll last doing what it's doing, but it's in nearly 50% of decks right now. And honestly, honorable mention to Theotar, which has kind of accompanied everything, and also another honorable mention to Sire Denathrius, who's also just dictating so much of the Hearthstone meta currently right now. But we'll see. The next expansion might shape things up right now, but these are definitely very meta warping cards, at least right now in Hearthstone. At number 9, we have a card that was nerfed pretty quickly, but my god, this card was just a tyrant. You played it basically in every deck, and if you couldn't beat Corridor Creeper, well, you weren't really playing the game. You needed your Shadow Reaper Anduin to try and nuke it, but that was 8 mana. But regardless, an insane card. This used to be a 5/5. It came in a meta where Patches was prevalent. We'll talk about him later. And yes, Corridor Creeper was the sleeper, and yes, I believe number 9 on the list, but it got nerfed pretty quickly, so its reign of terror did not last all that long. At number 8, this is the only class card I have on the list, so that's all right. No quest lines, nothing like that. There's an honorable mention section. I'll mention a bunch of them. But in number 8, we have Tunnel Trogg, the Shaman 1-drop, 1 mana 1/3. When you overload, gain 1 attack per locked mana crystal when you had cards like Totem Golem, Feral Spirit, the 4 mana 7/7. This card, if your deck was not built to kill this on turns 1 or 2, you were not winning. And this card dictated the standard meta for nearly 2 years. Shaman Stone was unleashed when this card came out in the League of Explorers, and was just one of the most dominant cards standard has ever seen, and never got nerfed. If it came out today, this would have got nerfed very quickly, but back in the old days, no. This card remained, and my god, it warped the entire meta for so long. At number 7, we have a pretty recent addition to the list in Kazakasan, the 8 mana 8/8 dragon that originally, if you just had dragons in your deck, you would craft a custom deck of treasures, and all of a sudden every deck became a Kazakasan deck where, well, you didn't really run dragons, you just ran spells or like one dragon like Raid Boss Onyxia, and you would just try and get this out as quickly as possible and win with like Embers of Ragnaros and Locust and all sorts of ridiculous things. And well, the card completely dominated until it was nerfed to its state now, where it still saw a reasonable amount of play. But basically, if you weren't playing Kazakasan or trying to beat a Kazakasan deck after that mini set came out, you were just not playing Hearthstone for quite a while. At number 6, we have the old god, the original old god, Yogg-Saron, Hope's End. Hey, nice flavor text. I wish I would have seen this a little bit sooner. But yes, this minion, Battle Cry, cast a random spell for each spell you've cast this game, targets chosen randomly, just dominated. It was not, people thought it might just be a meme card. No, this card was in every deck that ran any amount of spells, and it just won games. It just would clear the board, it would draw you cards, it would build a board. Hell, it could just outright kill your opponent. There were the odd times where it would actually, you know, cost you a game, but overall, this card was so good, it was brought to World Championships even after it was nerfed, or would stop casting its effect if it silenced itself itself, transformed itself, killed itself. It didn't matter. The card was insane. It dictated so much, and my God, you should have seen how much salt I exuded when I lost to this card. I really wish I streamed at the time. If there's a meta warping card, it better have Reno Jackson on the list at number 5. Another card from League of Explorers, Battle Cry. If your deck has no duplicates, fully heal your hero. Did you know this card is in standard right now? Did you know that? Because yeah, basically sees no play outside of Jailer Paladin right now, which I've been playing. The deck's kind of fun, but even that deck runs duplicates. But when this came out, all of a sudden you had Warlock in particular utilizing this card, and it is still a meta-defining card in Wild to this very day, with like Reno Priests and Reno Warlocks. So much that tech cards have been put into the game that put duplicates into your opponent's deck that are extremely relevant, like Bad Luck Albatross, which eventually got nerfed because of, well, it not only disabled these Highlander strategies they were pushing at the time with a card like Zephrys. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But yes, this card is just, it's all over the place. It's still really good in Wild. It might be good in Standard again someday. It kind of made it where you're like, okay, I got to build my deck to kill my opponent by turn 5 or I'm screwed, because you didn't really have the card draw and reload you have today, or you're going to try and out-greed a Reno Jackson deck with a really big late game strategy. But it all came down to, can I beat that Reno strat? And well, I got to give the meta warping nudge for Highlander cards to Zephrys at number 4. Battle Cry. If your deck has no duplicates, wish for the perfect card. This card was so powerful that it didn't matter if you had any other card that got Highlander synergy. It just didn't matter, because getting that perfect card could be a Tyrion, a board clear, just something really impactful that can outright win the game. Some classes like Rogue could utilize Shadow Step and play it a bunch of times. And it was also so damn good, you played it in decks that just drew a lot. They ran duplicates, but you would just draw so much, you would play it in the late game. This card was everywhere, and it was another one where maybe I get that Bad Luck Albatross, turn it off, do anything I can to beat Zephrys, because this card was everywhere and dictated so many things in its time in Standard, and is still an absolute force in Wild. At number 3, we have a card I've basically never seen actually be meta, the Undertaker. 1 mana 1/2, whenever you summon a minion with deathrattle, gain +1/+1. I started playing Hearthstone literally the week after this card got nerfed. So I didn't live in the Undertaker meta, yet I'm putting it number 3 because I have seen the horror stories. I've heard the tales of how if you couldn't deal with an Undertaker on turn 1, you were losing the game, or you were playing an Undertaker deck yourself. That was kind of the curse of Naxxramas cycle all the way up into GVG, was trying to beat the Undertaker. Everything was about that. I feel like for a lot of people, this might be number 1 on their list, but for me, I gotta put it number 3 because it just doesn't hit quite at home with me, but I can absolutely see how it was that meta warping. At number 2, we got the cover boy on the thumbnail, Patches the Pirate. After you play a pirate, summon this minion from your deck. It used to have charge. This card is auto include in any pirate deck ever, even in Wild to this day, outside of select like Miracle Rogue decks I've seen lately. But regardless, it, even without charge, busted. With charge, it just, every deck, you would just play pirates just to get patches, and it created a state where now you have to build your deck always to deal with early tokens. Patches forced you had to play a card like Defile. You had to play Galaka Crawlers. I mean, Galaka Crawler was made just because of this card, because of what it enabled. And it was so powerful, they eventually nerfed it, even though it was going to Wild, because they worried that Wild would forever be dominated by this guy. And guess what? He still was, without charge. And to me, it was just one of the most meta warping cards out there. It even enabled a card like Corridor Creeper. That card would not have been nearly as good if it wasn't for a card like Patches the Pirate, and just absolutely bonkers, and still kind of warps the meta in some way in Wild to this very day. And some honorable mentions. We have Dr. Boom, who basically forced you to run BGH. Luna's Pocket Galaxy, that when it cost 5 mana, basically made you uninstall. The Demon Seed was so good it got banned from Wild, and just created endless rants, and like, what was this card? Honestly, this probably should be on the list, but it's not, because reasons. Any of the Death Knight cards, basically Shadow Reaper Anduin, Gul'dan, Frostlich Jaina, Deathstalker Rexxar, definitely meta warping to an extent, but they all kind of existed at the same time, kind of countering each other, so I kind of left it off the list for that reason. Same could be said for Alterac hero cards like Guff, like Scabs, like Dawngrass. You know, you could list all of them, but they also, again, kind of counteract each other. And at number 1, Nova is revealing this one, Scabs Cutter Butter. I'm sorry, Nova. I know it's totally broken. It warped the entire meta forever and ever, okay? You can go now. Number 1 choice, I think it's pretty obvious, at least for me, has got to be Baku / Gen, but more so Baku. These 2 cards made you build your deck in a specific way to, well, Baku, upgrade your hero power, Gen, make your hero power cost 1. So impactful. Basically warped everything that you would always build your decks around these cards, and were so dominant and so overwhelmingly dominant that they were Hall of Famed and put to Wild a year early like we have never seen with any card since. And well, we'll see if Prince Renathal maybe gets that treatment or something, but for me, it's gotta be Baku and Gen. So let me know in the comments below what you agree with, disagree with. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. Have a great day and stay salty, my friends.